G'day punters, welcome back to another edition of the Punters Academy review show. Good morning, John Walter.
Good morning, mate. I just wanted to tell everyone that you put a petition in this morning to review race 9 10 times in a row, but we're actually going to review the whole meeting. Long live the mighty Surf Dancer. You must have loved it in the run and everything went according to plan, but I'm sure we'll get there as well.
Yeah, no, it was a pretty good weekend, including Friday night. And yesterday, great days racing. But anyway, let's start off with...
good to get onto the good tracks, which is, I guess, the first part anyway. It was good to get onto some firm surfaces. That's
right. The track speeds come out at the completion of the meeting at about a good 3. So that's perfect surface. Very, very good job to see that. And also the course, the shoot races were a touch faster. Perhaps not much, but touch faster. I thought handy advantage in both shoots and course proper, inside lanes in the straight and rails and run, not ideal. Could sit wide, plenty of evidence that you could sit wide on the day. Horses overachieving there as well. So keep that in mind for some of those horses. Race 1, the highway, over 1,500 metres. We saw an average to below average tempo by the time they got to the 600. Here, and there's plenty to cover out of this race.
Is there?
I think so. Joe Mari there going back from a wide gate, being taken back to race on the fence there, and Antonio Giovanni was lame. Radiohead got held up and ran on nicely. Look, I think there's a couple of horses to follow out of the race, you know.
I was told Joe Murray was rated horrifically, so I'm assuming it possibly could be one of your horses to follow potentially, and so it does have good physical upside as well. Pretty ugly race, wasn't it? Like,
carried the big weight.
63.
Obviously, going back, I think it's time to take it out of the highway grade and put it into a 78, where it'll drop, maybe 5.5, 6 kilos or something. I think that would be what I'd be doing.
Away from Rosehill, probably too ideally.
Up in distance as well. Up in distance wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, it's just a really ugly race. I was just trying to do the form prior. There wasn't much between a lot of them. They're all very similar horses, sort of one-paced, average type. So, even the Syrian Star that's a little bit down the outside, he wasn't too bad. But you can see from the bunch margins, this race is pretty tough to draw too much out of. It's like, as you say, Joe Murray just very poorly placed considering the weight in his pattern. The rest of them would go around in similar grade and run similar races, I think, over and over again.
Yeah, look, Radiohead got held up there.
Sorry, I forgot about it.
Hit the line nice. And, what did we say, Syrian Star, he sort of made its run in the best going, I thought. So
so that was it. It was at the first race, and we're kind of looking to see how this fence was playing, and Syrian Star's back there on the, not Syrian Star, Radiohead, number 9, sort of fall back the inside, gets held up, does come off the fence to make its ground. It's here in the corded cap and the white face, and, just a complete forgive. It's a sort of horse that kind of was new to the grade too, so it can certainly, improve maybe a rider change, and it could improve next time out as well for sure.
I'm against most of those horses on the day that made up ground down the middle. Anyway, race 2, the midway over 1,300, solid tempo here. We saw certainly plenty to cover in this race.
Oh my God.
So you want to talk
a quick recap? I could produce my pineapple thing, right? But long story short, Coates gone around first up. Everyone saw it. Tragedy beat. They put it in a maiden at Hawkesbury. They put up $4.80 or something. And it's already a Class 1 at Hawkesbury. It's Camels. It's into even money. I've been at the tab all night feeding bloody whatever into the machine, and late scratching due to pulling a shoe. Goes around on the Wednesday and wins by 6. And then this is so I didn't back it in the Wednesday. I was too smart for that. I was still scarred from the Sunday like an idiot, or the Saturday, and then this is its effort. I can't understand why he would want a weak horse like Rita May to cross him and end up behind leader at Rosehill with the conditions, and that's just doesn't make any sense to me.
There's a bit to talk about here, I suppose. Oakfield Duke needs to drop back in distance. It didn't run the 1300, and that's what they're saying. May Rose sort of copped a bit of a check there around about the 1,100-1,200 metre mark after it was racing keen and had to be steadied, and it's made good ground, but admittedly late down the best section of the track. Nick Tock was lame. Overall was held up after it also had the steady there at around about the 500 metre mark, and of course Cody, the one that you mentioned, John, very strong through the line. So pretty sick watch for both Overall and Cody, but especially the latter.
It's a weird race because and May Rose as well, I guess, but
May Rose is probably unlucky not to. I was going to say May Rose is probably unlucky not to have won it, being that he did have that momentum, but was touch bladdered. But obviously, Code gets a clear run. It wins the race, I think.
Agree. And the other two race closer to which. What the most incredible thing I think about the whole race, and I agree with the other horse too. I think he made have just big chance he's reached the end of his prep too. Oakfield Duke, the 1300, obviously not a strong 1300, another test as well, but certainly forgiving of him when he comes back. They're actually going they over race so hard, either or and Coach especially, and they're going quick. Really weird race, strange performances from both of them. They're both going really well, but I've never in my life seen a horse like this that basically does not stop pulling the whole way, completely held up, and then charges through the line without him ever moving his hands. I think it should have won by. I don't know how far. This horse is absolutely flying, and I don't know what you do with it now.
Well, I'm worried about May Rose, even though that was a good run. I'm just worried that, it's sort of deep into a prep for it. So I wouldn't be sort of getting carried away with it. But, I think, Code, you got to say it's a horse to follow in midway grade, at least.
Well, I think it should have won by 5 or 6. I honestly do. And I don't say that very often, because things like this are usually overplayed. But I think if he'd had a lead, it just would have gapped him. And, Anthony might back it up in a harder race because it hasn't had a tough run here. He's known to do things like that, and he could measure up to a nicer race potentially, but it's not as if anyone will miss it anyway.
Okay, let's move on to the 1900 metre race in race 3. Average to below average tempo. By the time they got to the 600, they had slowed down a bit. Did look faster than that to the eye, but pretty hard to judge when they're 1900 metre races. And, the eye will lie many times. Kissed the Bride there being snagged back, and back in distance didn't suit it, and it was going a bit mental early. Hammer On, probably
same note, right?
Touch unlucky. I would have preferred to see it or see it going forward on a track with a little bit more give in it, I think. Hammer On, maybe a change of jock. We're all got a bit of pikeitis at the moment.
Tin hat wearing, it looked like it had a barrier trial. I'm not saying it wasn't trying, but it looked like they were happy to do what he did, and maybe this wasn't, their grand final.
Perhaps. Is there much else?
No, the winner. I agree with you. Watching it the first time, I was like, "Oh my god, how good did the winner go?" Because it looked like they flew, and he was right up there and just dominant. Not saying he didn't run extremely well here. His effort was good at Canterbury the start before too, setting a fast speed and kicking off it. But you can obviously do that at Canterbury. In hindsight, the run wasn't as good as it may have appeared at first look, but still a horse that's certainly right on the up, isn't it? Pretty lightly raced, and a horse that this sort of camp tends to be able to place well and should keep running well.
Yeah, certainly no pull on the winner. I'm not getting too carried away with the race, but
no, neither.
Hammer On there, Pikey. I'm going to come out.
It's been a little bit disappointing.
I don't
know what he needs. Whether he's come to the end of it as well. Maybe he's just a mad fresh horse. I think the winner and third are the two. He could sneak down to Melbourne, Hammer On, and be interesting in a country cup week race somewhere.
Okay, let's move right on to the 1.5 mile. Colin Stephen, and above average tempo. They had slowed down a touch by the time they got to the 600. What do you want to walk us through this one, John? Smallish field.
Do you want me to put my tin hat on for this one or not?
Yeah, why not? Put your tin hat on.
So betting, obviously, dramatic drifter, and then this horse was reshot as well, but the drift was well before the reshoeing. Very strange, I thought, that he's got intent to really push forward on this horse when it looked like there was good speed. Cadre de Noir. Very strange that I thought he was trying to get in front of Grove Fairy or whatever. Like, ideally, he probably tries to drop in there, but I was a little bit surprised how positive McDonald was early, even though the horse led last up. Very different race. And then I've got this little conspiracy here. If you watch James outside leader a couple of times, so there he goes, number 1, looks between his legs. Don't know where he's looking there. And then he has another look about here. There he goes again. And then on the point of the turn, I think he's absolutely shocked that sort of Tim's got around him quick enough and he can't push off, and the stablemate gets box seated. But that's my tin hat. That's my tin hat for the day. I just thought a very strange ride from James. He's not one that allows horses to sort of get up beside him and out sprint him. Usually he's the one who plays his hand first, and for him to let Tim slide up and sort of get the momentum up on him before he's allowed to build his and force him back to the worst part of the track, it was a very unlike James McDonald ride for me.
So you're going to forgive Cafe Noir?
Yeah, I don't know what went on, but I'm being forgiving of. I think it's definitely the best horse in the race, without a shadow of a doubt. Thorain, came and probably wins anyway. But I just thought it should have won. I thought it was a pretty average ride, and Tim just caught him napping a little bit. And obviously Herman Hesse, or whatever it's called, was a little bit stiff not to get the run a bit earlier, but it was also got to the right part of the track, had the nicest run in transit, and I think Cadre de Noir is definitely the best horse in the race.
Okay, let's move on to race 5, the 1488, and we've got a solid tempo here, John. And I thought there was a decent run in this race.
Was it in the white with the red cap, green sleeves? No, maybe.
Well, come on! You're talking us through the race, John.
No, so yeah, they obviously go pretty quick here. Which race is this? This is Fine Points race. Yeah, so they go pretty quick. Certainly a solid tempo. Absolutely no knock on the winner. He's had a perfect run in transit, but raced close to the speed first up. Got to the front, put them away. Definitely the ones down the middle certainly had their chance. Pretty one-paced horses. I thought this horse back here was the horse that I wanted to follow out of the race. But is that the one?
Yep.
Diamond, yeah. So right through the line, he sort of gets squeezed up too, and it's only really through the line that he gets going in certainly the worst part of the track. So I think the form will be okay. They are sort of, there's not much between these horses, and that's what the margins show. But I think this is the one with the upside, and he had the worst setup on Saturday and ended up in the worst part of the track as well.
Okay, let's move straight on to the 1100 Heritage Stakes. We saw Economics go to a nice new peak here, and Semyon pull up, slow to recover, as did I. But all kudos to the winner, who has obviously come back and improved as a horse. Trials indicated that it was obviously likely to be pretty wound up, but you never really know until they resume. Semyon, I'm not sure what to make of it. I think he just put a line through the run, but the winner's pretty smart, I think.
I'm sick of bagging jockeys, so can you put your tin hat on for a second? Tell me what the heck Brenton Avdullah's doing, looking for an inside run here at the point of the turn, rather than at least showing a little bit of patience and trying to get to the middle or something. I don't understand where the heck he's trying to go here. Like right now, where is he trying to go?
Yeah, well, yes. Look, that did feature in the steward's report, and Stewart suggested that he perhaps consider his options a little better, but haven't really taken any action, I don't think.
Never do really, but and it's hard. It's hard because they are split second decisions. It's just a very strange one when someone who's ridden Rosehill a million times knows that that's not the play. Regardless, it's not as if it's a short straight that you don't have a little bit of time up your sleeve. So I don't really understand why your first intent would be to try and sneak up under a horse, even if that run became available. It's sort of the old Shane Dye, Mick Dittman show them that run, because that's where you want them to go. You know what I mean? Like, the best thing they would have wanted back in the day was for you to take that run. So very strange option. I'm not saying it costed the race, but it certainly costed its chance to win the race. But I agree with you.
What are your thoughts on the winner?
Horse, right?
Yeah, much better. Well, still a bit raw, I think, and has improvement. And Oval Ridge has gone pretty good.
Heard some rumours. Like, there's obviously, I think there's about 5 slots left for the Everest, and there was a few sniffing around economics, and it's at this stage said no, going to target the 3-year-old races. Like, I don't think the Daniel might be a bit quick, but I think the Coolmore might be its target, which is probably not unrealistic considering the depth of the 3-year-olds. There's not much around, isn't there? So like a Colt, that's probably a nice race for it to target up. The third horse is an absolute cracking looking animal. He's definitely got upside. I don't know whether it's this prep or not, but he's a beautiful horse.
Okay, let's move on to the Golden Pendant over 7 furlongs, set weights and penalties for fillies and mares, and average tempo here. And this is a bit of a vomit race for me. I had tipped on that new Wolf Den thing at Palazapane pretty well, and
I'm with you at the 100. Holy crap!
Yeah, I spent the cash and spoken to Chris in the morning and said, you got to go forward, and no point trying to go back here. And look, I think D Lane did the absolute best he could.
Best job he could do. Yeah.
Best job he could do under the circumstances, and unfortunately we just couldn't get the job done. But
I think it cost you the race there. If Snowden's holds the lead, outside leader position, and doesn't give it up to Nimmerley, you're on his back and you win for sure. But anyway, as you said, like, where else is he going to go, Lane? He's either going to go, back behind or sit back here or do something silly, which you see so many jockeys do. They've definitely not gone quick, have they? Like, so everything's worked out as well as possible. Still not ideal, but that's just how it fell.
It was well fancied by the stable, and look, it overachieves
every start, doesn't it? Pretty much.
Second biggest result went missing there. But look, a big shout out to Dave Dwyer too, who bets, as you know, on track. And first person I rang to bet with, and he bet me 5,400 straight away. So he does actually bet the fractions, and very kind of him.
I'll tell you why it surprises me. It's in the royal blue and yellow colours of his mighty Eels that are in the grand final this week. Dave Dwyer is about as big an Eels fan as you could find, and I wouldn't think he'd want to. So he might have gone with you. He might have been sick as well when it got beat, because I don't think he'd be laying one in those colours to hurt him, especially at that price. But he does take a bet, Dave. There's no doubt.
Well, I didn't want to take the $13 at that point, sports bet, because that would trim that up straight away. And Dave was first port of call. But yeah, good man, Dave, and Punters if you're betting in Sydney on the track. Very hard to find a bookmaker more competitive than what Dave offers, and always lets you on to lose the minimum, which is 5. And we'll bet fractions as well. So,
and he's we're probably going against our guidelines here, but Tristan has had to remove best of the best as an option because of the way he's sort of taxed, whereas on course is a little bit different. And I think he still does it, Dave, but early in the day you just got to be very organised. But he still does offer it. Star Tontes was the one.
It was a decent run.
It looked like it was going to do its usual trick and finish hard and probably get very close. But other than that, I thought they were all pretty plain. This guy just keeps hanging out, Espiona, doesn't it? Why do you just sack it? If it beats you in a race, too good, I think, at this point.
Look, it just might be that Melbourne run, where it sort of went like an absolute jet. Is wider markets keeps finding it. Overrated for mine, but yeah, can certainly has talent and will pick up a race eventually. But just wants to keep doing things wrong, doesn't he? Or she
keeps finding it, doesn't it? This horse wasn't a bad run. Dynasty's back on the inside. I don't think a a sit sprint helps it and back towards the, iffy part of the track. I didn't think it was a bad run first up in an unsuitable race.
Definitely forgive Star Tontes for sure. Okay, on to race 8, of course, the Golden Rose. Solid above average tempo by the time they got to the 600. In Secret had its chance. I mean, I know it was a sticky gate and all the rest of it, but it had its chance, and Jacquino was just better on the day.
This was the Godolphin Pineapple, wasn't it? Poor old Godolphin. They had it spent twice. 2 different horses they had it spent with. Tactics. You're happy with everyone's tactics? I think they did pretty similar to your horse. They did the best that they could with the gates that they drew. Golden Mile.
Fireburn finished off well and will be suited up in distance, and especially if it strikes a wet track. But it seems to have been one of the fewer slipper winners that seems to be racing well.
I think a lot of the 3-year-olds haven't come on too much either, so I think that kind of helps. They haven't got away, you know what I mean? But they could have. Yeah, fillies too. I don't know. I guess a lot of them fail, but everything pretty obvious here. I thought the winner was just incredible. Geez, it's a good horse. Super strong late. I wouldn't be surprised if it lines up in the Everest. I'd say it's nearly a certain.
I'd say it would almost have to, wouldn't it?
I think it'll get the Coolmore slot, which is in the same vein as Yes, and they profile pretty similar, don't they? Like it's a strong closing 3-year-old that will appreciate a fast run Everest, and you'd have to give it a yes sort of chance of winning the race too, I would imagine.
I mean, realistically, you can't say that In Secret was unlucky. Fireburn's taken ground off it the last furlong, racing inside it in the worst or in the more inferior part, and they weren't weak sectionals late. So I think In Secret had its chance. Maybe it just doesn't run 400 metres, which was one of the question marks I think I had, and I'm sure others did too. Through the breed and so forth.
Yeah. I think it might be its outer limit. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. I mean, okay, it only just got beat, but still.
Yeah, that's right. It's not as if it's looking for a mile. It's kind of where I think you're heading, which is
definitely
which is more important. I thought this bloke, he travelled a bit close. Prometo. I'm just thinking from a spring champion perspective. I like the run of this horse. Travelled close to a fast speed over 1400. Got dropped off a bit here, back towards the inside. Sort of Fireburn gets past him, and he's sort of dropping back there. Obviously, the guy inside him, but through the line, he's not stopping. He just doesn't quicken. And I thought he could improve up to a spring champion. And this fella back here as well of Gerald's, what's it called? Should know.
Well, Prometo too would probably appreciate a track with a little bit more give too, right?
Yeah, I absolutely. That would be ideal. I just thought it and Brosnan were nice runs from a 2,000 metre perspective. You would imagine that Zoo Tiger and these guys, they may drop back to a Coolmore if they get the chance. And I would love to see these two horses lining up in the Flight Stakes next week.
Okay, let's move on to my favourite race of the day, the Shannon. Below average tempo here. And look, Regan did a great job. Tim did, I suppose, what he had to do.
I think, I think it played out well because Reggie was probably, not reading your mind, may have been your, biggest question mark. I know his record's very good for the stable, and you did mention that. But when Tim sort of takes up the front, he very rarely gets the tempo wrong, does he? So if you sit outside him, usually you're okay. And for him to just sort of say, well, I want the lead, Reggie just goes, yep, beautiful, you have it. I'll sit there and we'll just wait and then we can go. And it's a bit of a weird one on paper, isn't it? Like they've gone really slow, which maybe wouldn't suit Surf Dancer, you wouldn't think. But he raced really with just that little bit of a freshen up, maybe just kept that sprint in his legs, and he never looked like getting beaten.
No, look, Dr. Drill's run back on the inside there against the sectionals, and the pattern I think was respectable first up, and it can certainly improve second up as well, I think. What's that other horse there in the colours that went okay? Kerwin's Lane.
In behind here, in the white cap.
Yeah, it was a fair enough run too, but I think Dr. Drills was better.
100%. And all of these horses, I think Ellsberg was the one that was disappointing. Just because it's got it's a sit sprinter. I know it had the weight, but it was probably the most disappointing because all of these horses are pretty much one-paced middle distance horses, either resuming or racing at a distance below their best. And the really slow tempo took winning probably out of their hands.
Okay.
And even
Ellsberg's gone about as good as he went first up.
Yeah.
Up in distance. So he didn't improve like he did second up last prep, mind you. That was a dead track last time, and maybe that helped. And but yeah, he's still got talent and can win races. But yeah,
he's caught. The rating's caught up with him a bit, hasn't it? He's just he's found.
I think so.
Yeah, he's a bit hard to place, and he just comes up a little bit shorter than easy because of his racing style too. Like he's not a horse you ever really want to oppose too much, but I don't think he's on the up anymore. Is probably the main key. And I would treat most of these horses runs as barrier trials. Big Boy Roy, Dr. Drill, very good. Is it D'Souza or something? And a Mount Popper, it completely out sprinted, and Pinarello as well. Barrier trial.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the last race, the 1178. Average tempo, they then quickened up by the time they got to the 600 a little bit, and bunched finish. And John, I think you might have tipped this.
I was very lucky. Sort of mentioned I had it on top, but it still double figures, and I think it was sort of $31 in the morning. But I was a horse that needed dry, so if that rain came through, sending out markets at 10 a.m. It was very hard to be super confident about this horse. But as it turned out, the rain didn't really come, only, whatever, negligible amount. And I heard a whisper that the great man, Glenn Pollitt, said it had improved from the parade. Someone sort of whispered in my ear about whatever it is, 10 minutes out, which got my attention. And, I was lucky enough to make it probably a better result than I would have if I didn't hear that. So that's what the mounting yard does sometimes. It works out well, but a very good ride from Clipperton. Everything went its way, solid tempo. And it's just a horse that does need things to go his way, but he needs a dry track. He's best off a solid tempo. And the stable's actually going quite well. They're always very hard to catch, but the Payne Stables horses are racing pretty well at the moment. Second horse was good. Winning Verse sat outside the leader. Tristate 3 wide outside him was good as well. These horses will race well in similar company, but not much between them, I think.
Just on Winning Verse there too. It was a half a kilo over for J Parr.
I forgot. I read that in the Stewart's report.
Maybe that made a difference.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. So he's never going to ride under 56 unless it's a big race. So it was a weird one that it wasn't reported early. They must have missed it because he was never going to ride this horse 55.5. But in close finishes like that, you do wonder why they allow it. But the problem is there's not too many. Look at he's come back after the line and hit the front. But it's a good horse, that Winning Verse. It's definitely got races in it. This wasn't a bad pipe over to for Very Fine Red. I think the inside gate sort of played against it a bit. Just a bit of a worry. Julian Rock and what's this guy called? Country Horse Spiranac sort of closing off does make me worry about the form a little bit. But I'm happy to have got a result and get away with it. I just think they're similar. Like they're just Saturday horses. Winning Verse is probably the one I'd want to own moving forward.
Second worst last 400 lead section of the day in terms of rating. And so that's why a lot of those horses making ground at the end there, I think, perhaps a little flattered, and more of a case the others, I think.
Agree.
Horses to follow, John, out of the meeting.
Why do I never get these ready? I do it every time. Nothing in race one. I think Coke can win a better race than a midway. I think if it goes to a midway, it'll come up too short. So if might be a little out wide thing there. If he jumps it in grade and you get a silly price, that's what I'd be where I'd be interested to find Coke, even though I think it can win a midway. Nothing there. Diamond, we both found. Nothing there. Definitely nothing there. Yeah, Prometo in the Spring Champion. I'm still bullish about. I think the two fillies that came out of the Golden Rose, if they back up, will go very close in the flight as well. That's it for me.
Okay, race one for me. Joe Mari, I think up in distance, they can get it into a 78 now, which will take around 5.5 kilos or so off its back. I think that would be ideal. Also, Radiohead, if it sticks in highway grade, I think can get away with a race like that. Out of race two, I'm going to say yours, Coat. I think up to a 78 is probably fine on a Saturday for it. Hammer On, I was sort of borderline, but I'll leave it out. Diamond out of race 5, Economics the winner in race 6, and then Fireburn out of the 8th, Dr. Drill out of the 9th.
Good one, Dr. Drill.
Yeah, next start for it can improve.
I think Hammer On's one of those ones where you give Hammer On the big tick, don't you, that he's ready to win, but you just want to have a really close look at the race that he heads into. So it's really hard to make him a horse to follow with confidence.
So that's it this week. Punters, in terms of the review, we will do a separate show with Peter Lawrence after, where we'll review the Moya Stakes meeting from Friday. John, we're going to get on to questions this week, and we've got quite an interesting segment this week. Look, bit disappointing in terms of the response, guys. Get your emails in, and even if you want to send them earlier in the week, that'll be fine. But look, we've got one excellent question, and we'll get to that second. The first is from Les, who just wanted to know what adjustments would I make to all the runners out of the Underwood Stakes going forward, assuming their next run is over 2,000 metres. Les, I don't have the data for that meeting yet, so can't even begin to talk about that. Other than I will say, I don't think that I'm thunderstruck was in any way unlucky. Kudos to you too, John. I mean, you suggested Alligator Blood would handle the 1800, and I had a slight question mark in the head. I mean, Mwanga in second, for God's sake. So I think it's just a case of I'm thunderstruck, and Mr. Brightside on the day didn't go as well.
I haven't. What was the tempo like? I haven't even seen the.
Well, they were running they ran about 108 something. Excuse me, for the 1800 overall. So they weren't going slow, and look, they're running around like 12 5s, 12 3s. It was a nice evenly rated race, but they weren't going slow, I don't think.
No, I think Alligator Blood went even better than I thought it could. I thought he'd have to control the race more to be as dominant as he was. So he's a horse that's definitely improved, and I don't think they'll make the same mistake. I'm not saying he's a good thing in the Cox Plate, but he's definitely a contender now.
Look, I would have to say that I think I might have been wrong about this horse. So I don't know.
He just knocked up the other day. That's it. And it's hard to factor that in, isn't it? Like the race was so different to last start. And so he's made a significant improvement, which was very hard for anyone to factor in. I think he surprised everyone.
Indeed. So, Les, if you want to sort of message me later in the week, or if there's a particular horse you're interested in, I can tell you how I've handled that as opposed to all of them. Our question of the week this week raises a very interesting discussion that we've been in, I suppose, liaison with Tristan of TopSport. It's from Tim, and good on you, Tim. You get the 200 this week. The question is regarding the mechanics of the tax that corporates pay. You may not be able to read that on screen, Punters, but he's basically saying if punter A deposits $100 into TopSport and has 5 $20 bets and they all lose, and punter B deposits the same $100 into TopSport and has a few wins and then bets across multiple codes and sports and has, say, 25 $20 bets until he no longer has any more in the account, does TopSport pay more tax on punter B as he's bet into more markets when theoretically they receive the same amount of money from the client, i.e. the $100? I assume this philosophy hasn't changed over the years in bookmaking. However, the rise of taxes has changed. It is therefore not logical that the aim of the corporates is to have punters lose more quickly. That's true. Not because they don't want to cripple punters, but simply pay less tax. Look, I think that punters losing too quickly is not good for the industry, period. And I know that Tristan concurs with that. And then Tim goes on to say, which in turn goes against the idea of increasing turnover and having punters' recreational money last longer. So there was an email exchange yesterday, John, between yourself and myself and Tristan, and we flagged this issue, and we've got a number of slides to present, so we'll just hold these and go through them. Now, the first slide represents 3 customers and is calculated assuming that the feature race day in Victoria and New South Wales and standard race day in other states. And basically what Tristan's saying here is that the big difference is that you paid a higher of revenue or turnover in Victoria and Western Australia on a meeting by meeting basis, which means as a bookie, you can't afford to win on one meeting and lose on the other. So we've got a customer there that's had the 5 $20 bets there. He's turned over 100, lost 100. They pay a total of $27.50 on that straight off the top in POC and product fees, Rosefields. Then if they go to question or customer 2, which is, customer B in Tim's question, which has the same $5 $20 bets, but they all win. So he's now got 500, and he then proceeds to lose the next 25 bets at $20. The bookmaker still won the $100. The punters lost at the rate of 16.67% on turnover, which is way too fast. We don't want that. But they've had to pay $36.40 in POC tax and product fees. And then, of course, customer 3, which is 5 $20 bets. He now has a balance of 500. He stops betting that day, puts the cue on the rack, comes back and on Cup Day and has the same 25 $20 bets, all losing. Once again, turned over the same amount, lost the same amount, 100, which is the same loss on turnover in terms of the 16.67%. But the product fees now are a whopping $80.48. Now, if you think about it, punters, you got $100 from this client, you've won. Whether you're paying $27.50 or $80.48, it's way too much, because you're left with $72.50 in the case of customer 1, and you've then got to run your business and pay all your overheads. So your IT, your trading desk, your rent, your insurances, you've actually got to make a profit as well. And then after all that's said and done, you've still got to pay income tax if there's any profit on the leftover.
And the middle one is probably like what they're trying to say is their ideal client now, which what we're saying is ridiculous, 16.6. And this is unrealistic. This is just number. No one loses 100%. So 16 is what they're aiming for, which again is diabolical. And yeah, this 36.40 is what you're saying is just literally product fees and POC with no overheads, no free bets, no promotions, nothing incorporated.
Yep. Doesn't include any of those. And of course, we all know that there's not that many customers that would lose 5% or let alone 16%. Anyway, this is where it becomes a bit sticky. So we're going to go into another scenario now, John. You've got another slide there to show us. And this time we're going to have a look at the impact of the same situation, feature race day in Victoria and New South Wales, standard in other states. But this time we're going to up the ante from $20 bets to $40 bets. So we've got 5 $40 bets. They all win. He's got a balance of 900. He's got 10 losing bets of $40. He's now got 500. He backs 5 more winners, which takes him up to 1,300. And then he proceeds to knock off the lot in $40 bets. So he's turned over 2,100. The risk to the client, of course, is $100, which is his original starting capital. So he's effectively lost about 5% on turnover, which you would otherwise think would be a good client. And they pay a product fees of about and taxes of about $68.53 on that $100 loss of the client. And then in customer 3's instance, he's had the same situation, the 5 $40 bets. He brings his balance up to 900. He stops betting on day 1, returns the next day, has another 10 bets of $40, so exactly the same as customer 2. He's got the monkey left. He backs 5 more winners that brings him up to the 1,300 and then proceeds to lose the lot. So there's no difference between customer 2 and 3, except that customer 3 is doing it over 2 days, not 1. Still turned over the same amount of money, still lost the same, about 5% on turnover at $100. But this time the product fees and POC tax equate to $157 or 157% of the loss of the client.
Without any other overheads.
Without any overheads. Without any overheads. Look, it's no wonder that this isn't sustainable. And it's no wonder that TopSport is now.
If you put that out and say he's held $1 million and he's won at 5% for over the 2 days, with that same turnover, everyone's lost $4, but he's lost $570,000 over the 2 days. Obviously, it's a perfect storm, but that shows he's basically showing up, risking everything for nothing.
Well, we had Rob Waterhouse on the show recently, and Rob said the magic number is 7%. So a customer has to lose at least 7% on turnover, on average, for them to even have the chance of making a profit. So it's no wonder, and it's not really the bookmaker's fault, that they're rejecting customers and trying to cherry pick losing customers, because they just can't do it any other way. Especially if they're medium-sized bookmakers and they're over the threshold, which of course TopSport is. They've spent a lot of money and invested a lot of money over the years building their business, and now this is the situation they find themselves in. And look, nobody would want that situation.
And they look after us, there's no doubt, but we're not going into bat for them. This is just logic that, if bookmakers on track don't have the pocket at the moment, but if they did, they'd be in the same boat instantly. And, their business is built on building turnover, not knocking anyone back, fitting everyone into the book, moving their book forward, laying all runners. That's what the game's designed around, not cherry picking, poker machine, sort of conditions. And
So in light of all of these changes, and there was an announcement by TopSport recently that they're going to remove or have removed best of best as a betting option. The limits that we normally put up in a slide we've had to take down, they no longer apply. So basically, they will continue to bet the minimum bet laws from the time they go up. So they will give you a fair bet, but certainly no bigger limits at this stage until something changes. Something's got to give, guys. I mean, this is unsustainable. It's just very, very short-sightedness on the administrators' side of things. What we're going to show you a couple of examples now of what happens with a smaller operator, smaller bookmaker in the same situation.
I sound like Tristan's boyfriend too, going into bat for him, but he's actually distraught to make these changes, and he didn't even want to bring him until after the spring carnival. And basically the decision was made that, his business is literally not viable if he holds the money through spring that he's held in previous years. So he's had to make these changes now. And these are the difference with the threshold.
Okay, so now we're back to the first slide. So we're going to assume that the guy that had the $5 bets, which all lose, and the $5 bets where they all win, and then both of those situations where they knock it off, but the third customer does it over 2 days. If you're under the threshold, we go from $27.50, I think it is, to $1.
Yes.
In customer two's instance, we go to a fee of $6, and in customer three's instance, we go to a fee of $6. So obviously, smaller businesses should have some sort of competitive advantage, or they do have the advantage, but there's a sizable advantage in this situation. And bookies of TopSport size don't have the benefits of scale at the top tier of the business to compensate for the huge differences in this scale. And that's why Tristan has now made a decision to wind his business back and try to reduce turnover on racing by, I think he said, 50%. I don't know if that's the exact figure, but yeah, it's certainly a figure like that. And it obviously it's just come to a point where it's not helping anyone, because the administrators are thinking, let's continue to tax. The Landys and co go, well, the punter doesn't really care what price they take. We can afford to do this. They'll just keep betting. But this is what happens, and this is the impact of what happens when the state governments, through lack of foresight and understanding, perhaps, or maybe they understand it very well and they just don't care. I don't know. But the reality
you've got to also talk about the landscape, haven't you? The 90 book pop-up guys, right? The 90 pop-up guys have popped up because of this, because we're copying 140% markets or whatever, because the big guys have to do that. They're trying to condition to people to lose 15% on turnover so that they can survive, which is horrible. And the little guys have come in and recognised this and understand that if they jump in, they've got this now betting marketplace that we're all trying to fit into that's diabolical for everybody. You're trying to get everyone to lose 15%. And if they go in, the big guys have got to pay $27.50, $36.40 and $80.48. I should have put that up in my slide, but I'm not talented enough.
Or even $157 in that.
As it comes across. So these guys are really piggybacking on the back of a horrible landscape that's there because the big guys have to pay these crazy taxes, and they're just, it sounds terrible, but they're just stripping mugs and not having to pay the tax, which is even worse because they should be providing more competitive markets to compensate.
It's good that there's more bookmakers from my point of view, from a betting perspective. Most of these guys I wouldn't bet with, because what happens if I, parlay something up and there's a big payout, or like Palacipan, I backed it to win 25,000 on Saturday. What happens if I win 25,000 off one of these small operators? I don't know what their financial position is. It's different with a Rob Waterhouse or a TopSport or a Sportsbet or Ladbrokes or Tab or any of those bigger operators. But the small operators, is that, or a $50,000 payout, is that going to cause them financial distress? Are they going to be able to meet that payout and continue to operate? I've got no idea, and I don't want to be first in line to find out. So I think that, if you're backing horses just to win the NBL, a couple of $1,000, sure. I mean, that's probably fine to use those guys. And plus, we can't use automation at this point in time, so there's no real advantage in being able to bet across 60, 70, 80 bookmakers unless you've got the automation in place. And yes, that is something that I hope comes in anyway. And I know others do, and I know some are against it. But whatever your view, the fact remains that the administrators in the industry aren't viewing this correctly, and they are crueling the industry for everybody. And God knows where it's all going to end up.
And it's in the middle, like you said, like this, the tax breaks and the structure at the moment is obviously there to try and help new people get established and push forward, right? That you would believe that is, and that's not what they're attempting to do. They're piggybacking like parasites on the back of a really poor landscape, not actually giving their clients anything more other than, I would imagine, suitable clients. So your 16% plus are getting promos and whatever you want. They can have whatever they want. But if you're a undesirable client, I imagine they'll bet us the NBLs or whatever, but that's it. At a high, into the 130, 140. So if you can bet through that, you can get on to win minimum bets. If you're a bad punter that loses quickly, we'll give you incentives. Otherwise, we'll just hide and piggyback off these bad prices, which is not what it's designed to do. Like, the whole system should be designed to help someone like Tristan, who wants to turn over money, bet the lowest percentage and push his book forward, which is kind of what this tax structure should allow the little guys to do, but they've got no interest in that. They've got no interest in providing leading products. They just want to hide below the radar and the threshold. I've
got no problem with the race fields because that's in and we all pay it. I mean, I pay it and anyone in this space pays and should pay. If they're running a tipping business, if they're running a data business, that's just the real rules. The POC tax, on the other hand, is unnecessary. And I think that what they raise in revenue, or what they think they're going to raise in revenue, ultimately in real dollars will be less than what they could raise if they kept the taxes low and promoted a bigger turnover model. Instead of turning over 100 million, for example, and making 10%, I'm just picking numbers here, turn over $1 billion and make a small percentage. So they're not really. I think it's just a grab for cash, and maybe ignorance of how it all works and what the real impact is on these operators. Because at the end of the day, if people like TopSport start chopping their business in half, and it becomes worse and worse and worse for the punter, then eventually, middle tier punters are going to get squeezed out. What's going to happen then?
They already pretty much are, aren't they? Really, to be fair, like the middle, if not all of them, there's a big reduction. And if you're weighting your whole structure on the recreational dollar, you wouldn't say, and I'm not a financial advisor, that the world is in a great position at the moment. Cash flow is certainly drying up, and if people are losing at a rate of 16% on turnover, it's a horrible comparison, but it's worse than a poker machine room. So how is the money going to continue to flow? Like, where are they going to continue to find it? And obviously the enjoyment and the entertainment factor is taken out too when you're losing your money, 2 or 3 times quicker than you were a few years ago. Even if you haven't realised it yet, you eventually will, won't you? So it's dangerous.
Well, let's hope that something gives eventually, and some changes are made, and the state governments realise the error in their ways.
Yeah,
okay,
it's just a structure thing, right? It's just a structure thing. So surely it's solvable.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, guys, for your attention again this week, and hope that you get something out of it. And of course, the rapid fire will be back again on Thursday of this week.
You'll be back in 35 minutes.
I'll be back soon. I'll be doing a show with Peter Lawrence, of course, just reviewing the Moonee Valley card on Friday and talking about some of the rated performances and how some of those horses look like going forward. And of course, as I said, the rapid fire on Saturday. So we've got Randwick and Flemington on Saturday. So we'll be covering a bit there, I imagine. Thanks, guys.
Have a great day. Good luck, guys.
See ya.